The demand and the sacrifice, the ultimatum arrives. The holographic projection filled the entire chamber of the United Earth Assembly. 15 alien species stood before humanity's leaders, their forms flickering in blue light. At the center stood High Chancellor Vex Roth of the Meridian Coalition, his crystalline body refracting the chamber's lights into rainbow patterns across the walls. His voice resonated through translation devices. Cold and absolute. General Catherine Morrison stood rigid in her dress uniform, watching from the military observer section. She had spent 30 years preparing Earth's defenses for this exact moment. Now, looking at the 15 species that controlled 2/3 of the known galaxy, she realized all her preparations meant nothing. The math was simple and brutal. Earth had 200 warships. The Meridian Coalition had 70,000. Vex Roth's translated words echoed through the silent chamber. Humanity has expanded beyond the boundaries established by Meridian law. Your colonies in the Arcturus sector violate the preservation zones. Your military buildup threatens the stability of this galactic region. The Coalition Council has reached a unanimous decision. Earth will submit to Meridian authority within 72 hours, or face immediate military action. Earth's Prime Minister David Okonkwo rose slowly from his seat. The man had led humanity through plague, economic collapse, and the first Mars rebellion. But Catherine could see the weight of this moment crushing him. His voice remained steady, but his hands trembled slightly as he gripped the podium. High Chancellor, our colonies are scientific and agricultural settlements. We have no hostile intent toward the Coalition or any of its member species. Surely we can negotiate terms that satisfy both parties. Vex Roth's crystalline form seemed to pulse with something that might have been amusement. Negotiation implies equality, Prime Minister. Humanity is not equal to the Coalition. You are a single species, confined to one system, possessing primitive technology. The Coalition offers you protection and guidance. In exchange, you will dismantle your military, accept Coalition oversight of your government, and limit your expansion to your home system. These terms are not negotiable. Catherine's jaw clenched. She had studied the Meridian Coalition for 2 decades. She knew their history. Every species they had absorbed told the same story. First came protection, then came control, then came exploitation. Within a generation, Earth would become nothing more than a resource colony, its people reduced to laborers for alien industries. The Council's decision, emergency meeting of the Earth Defense Council, lasted 14 hours. Catherine sat at the strategic planning table, surrounded by the finest military minds humanity had produced. Admiral Chun Wei commanded the orbital defense fleet. General Hassan al-Rashid controlled the ground forces. Director Sarah Hoffman ran Earth's intelligence networks. Together, they reviewed the same data over and over, hoping to find a solution that did not exist. We could fortify the lunar bases, Admiral Chun suggested, his voice lacking conviction. Use them as defensive strongholds. Make any invasion costly enough that the Coalition reconsiders. Catherine pulled up tactical projections on the holographic display. Red dots representing Coalition warships outnumbered the blue dots of Earth's fleet by 300 to 1. They wouldn't invade, Chun. They would bombard us from orbit. Our bases would last maybe 6 hours against their firepower. Earth's surface would last another 12 before they cracked our planetary shields. General al-Rashid leaned forward, his weathered face grim. What about the Deep Space Initiative? The colony ships we sent out 40 years ago? The room fell silent. The Deep Space Initiative was Earth's most classified program, known only to the highest levels of government and military command. 40 years ago, when humanity first detected signals indicating intelligent life beyond their system, a secret decision had been made. If humanity ever faced extinction, it would not die completely. 20 massive colony ships had been built in hidden shipyards beyond Pluto's orbit. Each carried 50,000 people in cryogenic suspension, along with genetic material, technology blueprints, and weapons manufacturing capabilities. The ships had launched on different vectors, heading for distant star systems that showed signs of habitable worlds. They traveled below light speed. Their journey would take 80 years. But if Earth fell, those million people would survive. They would remember. And someday, they would return. Director Hoffman activated her encrypted datapad. The initiative ships are currently between 38 and 42 light years from Earth, depending on their specific trajectories. They're maintaining communication silence as planned. If we send a signal now, it will take decades to reach them. By the time they receive word of what's happening here, most of the original crew will be dead. Their children and grandchildren will be the ones who hear about Earth's fall. Catherine stood and walked to the window overlooking Geneva. Below, millions of people went about their lives, unaware that their leaders were deciding whether to fight and die, or surrender and slowly lose everything that made them human. She thought about her daughter, Emily, studying engineering at Tokyo University. She thought about her grandson, Michael, just 5 years old, who dreamed of becoming an astronaut. What kind of future would they have under Meridian rule? "We send the signal," Catherine said quietly. "We tell the initiative ships everything. We give them full tactical data on the Meridian Coalition, their technology, their fleet positions, their weaknesses. We make sure that if Earth falls, our people out there know exactly who did it and how to fight them." Prime Minister Okonkwo entered the council chamber, his face aged a decade since the morning. The coalition has broadcast their ultimatum across every communication channel on Earth. The people know. There are protests in every major city. Some demand we fight. Others beg us to surrender and spare lives. The chaos will only grow worse. Catherine turned from the window. "What has the Assembly decided, sir?" Okonkwo's shoulders sagged. "We surrender. We have no choice. But we do it on our terms. We negotiate every detail, delay every concession. We buy time for our people to prepare, to hide what needs hiding, to preserve what can be preserved. And we pray that someday, somehow, humanity gets a second chance." The secret transmission DR. James Sterling worked in the subterranean communications array beneath the Australian outback. The facility was officially dedicated to deep space observation and radio astronomy. Unofficially, it was Earth's last line of communication with the Deep Space Initiative. For 40 years, Sterling and his team had maintained the quantum-entangled communication relays that connected Earth to the colony ships. The technology was humanity's greatest secret. While the initiative ships traveled through normal space, their communication systems utilized quantum entanglement to send and receive data instantaneously across any distance. The Meridian Coalition had no idea such technology existed. Earth scientists had discovered it by accident 20 years ago and had kept it hidden. Knowing that such an advantage might be humanity's only hope in a hostile galaxy, Sterling's hands moved across the control interface, encoding the massive data package. Every detail of the Coalition's forces, their weapons technology, shield frequencies, tactical doctrines, political structure, and known weaknesses. Information gathered by Earth's spy satellites and intelligence operatives over the past month. He included the surrender documents, the terms of occupation, and a personal message from General Morrison. The message was simple but powerful. To the crews of the Deep Space Initiative, Earth has fallen. We surrendered to preserve lives, but we did not surrender our future. You are that future. Learn from our mistakes. Grow strong. Remember who we were. And when you are ready, come home. Humanity's story is not over. It is only beginning. Sterling encrypted the message with a code that only the initiative ships possessed. Then he activated the quantum relay. The transmission was instantaneous. But the colony ships would not decrypt and review it until their scheduled communication check in 6 months. By then, Earth would be fully under coalition control. But the seeds of resistance would be planted, asterisk, as Sterling shut down the array, erasing all evidence of the transmission. Coalition security forces were already surrounding the facility. They had detected unusual quantum fluctuations during the transmission. They did not understand what they had detected, but they knew it was important. Sterling initiated the facility's self-destruct sequence, destroying the quantum relays and all associated technology. He died when the facility collapsed, taking Earth's greatest secret to his grave. The Coalition would never know that humanity had just sent a message to its own future. The occupation begins. The surrender ceremony took place in New York, at the rebuilt United Nations headquarters. Coalition warships hung in the sky like dark clouds, blocking out the sun. Their shadows fell across the city, a physical manifestation of the oppression to come. Catherine Morrison stood in her dress uniform, her medals heavy on her chest. Each one represented a battle won, an enemy defeated. Now she would surrender without firing a single shot. Asterisk. High Chancellor Vexroth descended from his command ship in a shuttle that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. He walked up the steps to the platform where Prime Minister Okonkwo waited with the surrender documents. Every camera on Earth captured the moment. The Coalition, BROADCA, ST it across the galaxy as a warning to other species who might resist their authority. Okonkwo, read the terms in a voice drained of emotion. Earth acknowledges the authority of the Meridian Coalition. We accept Coalition protection and guidance. We agree to dismantle our military forces and limit our expansion as directed by Coalition law. We submit ourselves to the wisdom of species far older and more advanced than our own. Catherine wanted to scream. She wanted to draw her sidearm and empty it into Vexroth's crystalline body, knowing it would accomplish nothing, but feeling the desperate need to resist. Instead, she stood at attention, her face a mask of professional discipline. While everything she had fought for dissolved into submission, the occupation forces arrived within hours. Coalition soldiers, representing a dozen different species, descended on every military base, every weapons facility, every shipyard. Earth's warships were boarded and powered down. Soldiers were ordered to surrender their weapons and report to processing centers. Catherine watched as her own sidearm, carried through 3 wars, was tossed into an industrial smelter along with thousands of others. The Meridian administrators were efficient and thorough. They established control centers in every major city. Human governments remained in place, but Coalition overseers monitored every decision. Laws were rewritten to align with Meridian standards. History books were edited to present the Coalition as humanity's saviors rather than conquerors. Children learned Coalition languages alongside their native tongues. The resistance forms Catherine was allowed to keep her rank initially. The Coalition wanted to maintain the appearance of human leadership while ensuring that leadership had no real power. She was assigned to a liaison position, coordinating between Earth's remaining defense personnel and Coalition occupation forces. It was humiliating work, but it gave her access to information and movement that most humans no longer possessed. She used that access carefully. Over the months following the surrender, Catherine made contact with others who refused to accept Earth's fate. Former military officers, intelligence operatives, scientists, engineers, people who understood that submission today meant extinction tomorrow. They met in secret, using codes and dead drops that the Coalition's surveillance systems could not detect. Dr. Rebecca Santos had worked in the Deep Space Initiative's planning division. She knew about the colony ships, their capabilities, their locations. If the ships received Dr. Sterling's message, they know what happened here. But they are 40 light years away, traveling at 0.1 light speed. Even if they turned around immediately, It would take them 400 years to return. Catherine nodded slowly. Then we have to survive for 400 years. We have to keep humanity's spirit alive, long enough for our descendants to be rescued by people who are right now, just beginning their journey toward distant stars. The resistance network grew slowly and carefully. They called themselves the Ember Protocol, a reference to keeping humanity's fire burning in the darkness. They did not engage in violence or sabotage. The Coalition's response to such actions was swift and brutal. Instead, they focused on preservation. Secret schools teaching real human history. Hidden data banks storing cultural information the Coalition was erasing. Underground factories maintaining the knowledge of weapons manufacturing and military tactics. Most importantly, they watched the stars. The Coalition controlled all official astronomical observations, but they could not watch every amateur astronomer, every homemade telescope. The Ember Protocol established a network of observers across the planet, watching for any sign that the deep space initiative ships had not abandoned them. 5 years of darkness, 5 years, passed like a slow death. Catherine watched Earth transform into something she barely recognized. The cities grew more efficient, but less human. Architecture became standardized to Coalition preferences. Human culture was marginalized as primitive and backward. The younger generation, those who had grown up under occupation, began to see the Coalition as normal. They did not remember freedom, so they did not miss it. Catherine's daughter Emily had been forced to abandon her engineering studies. The Coalition required all advanced technical education to take place in their facilities, taught by their instructors, ensuring that human innovation remained within acceptable limits. Her grandson Michael no longer dreamed of exploring space. The Coalition had made it clear that humanity's place was on Earth, serving the greater galactic community. The Ember Protocol continued its quiet resistance. They had cells in every major city now, thousands of members, all working to preserve something of humanity's independent spirit. But Catherine knew it was not enough. They were fighting a holding action, delaying inevitable cultural extinction. Without hope, without something to fight toward, humanity would eventually give up. That hope arrived on a cold November morning in the form of strange signals, detected at the edge of the solar system. Amateur astronomers in the Ember Protocol network noticed them first. Energy signatures that did not match any known Coalition or human technology. The signals appeared briefly, then vanished, as if something was testing Earth's defenses. Measuring response times, Catherine received the encrypted reports in her small apartment. She read them 3 times, afraid to believe what they might mean. Then she decoded the final message from the observation team. Multiple gravitational anomalies detected in the Kuiper belt. Pattern suggests artificial origin. Configuration matches theoretical signatures of mass convoy deployment. Someone is coming, and they are trying not to be detected. Catherine walked to her window and looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, beyond the Coalition warships that still orbited Earth like prison guards, something was moving through the darkness. Something that traveled quietly, avoiding detection. Something that seemed to know exactly where Earth's sensors would be watching. She allowed herself to smile for the first time in 5 years. The Deep Space Initiative had not abandoned them. The colony ships had turned around, and after 40 years of traveling away from home, they were finally coming back. The Meridian Coalition thought it was over. They thought humanity had been conquered, broken, absorbed into their empire. They had no idea that Earth's surrender had been tactical, not final. They did not understand that humans planned in generations, not years. They could not comprehend a species that would send its children into the void for 4 decades. Trusting them to remember and return. Catherine activated her encrypted communicator, sending a message to every Ember Protocol cell across the planet. 3 words that would change everything. The fleet returns. The galaxy had demanded Earth's surrender. They had received it. But they had not received humanity's submission. That was something they would never have. And very soon, the Meridian Coalition was going to learn the difference between winning a battle and winning a war. Humanity's real fight was about to begin. Asterisk, the return, and the reckoning. The Black Fleet emerges. Fleet Commander Victoria Cross stood on the bridge of the UED's Resolute, watching the tactical display with eyes that had never seen Earth except in photographs and recordings. She was 38 years old, born in the cramped corridors of a generation ship, 17 years into its journey away from home. Her parents had been part of the original Deep Space Initiative crew, scientists and soldiers who had volunteered to leave Earth forever so that humanity might survive somewhere among the stars. Victoria had grown up on stories of Earth. Her mother had shown her pictures of oceans and mountains, forests and cities. Her father had taught her military history, the battles humanity had fought to survive and thrive. When she was 16, the quantum message had arrived, the message that changed everything. Earth had fallen. The Meridian Coalition had conquered humanity's homeworld, and the Deep Space Initiative's mission had transformed from colonization to liberation. The 20 colony ships had immediately altered course, turning back toward Earth. But they could not simply return and attack. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and traveling in vessels designed for colonization, not warfare. So they had done what humans did best. They adapted. They improvised. They planned for 22 years. The colony ships had traveled through regions of space the Meridian Coalition had never explored. They had encountered alien species the Coalition did not know existed. They had salvaged technology from derelict vessels, traded with independent worlds, and fought pirates who preyed on isolated travelers. Every encounter had taught them something new. Every battle had made them stronger. And they had built. Using resources from asteroid belts and ice planets, the Initiative's engineers had constructed a fleet. Smaller ships, faster ships, vessels designed specifically to fight the Meridian Coalition, using tactics the enemy would never expect. They had painted these ships black, coating them with materials that absorbed sensor scans and made them nearly invisible in the darkness of space. The Black Fleet was born from necessity and desperation, but it had become something more. It had become humanity's vengeance. Now, after 40 years away from Earth, the Black Fleet hung at the edge of the solar system. 2,000 warships surrounded by support vessels, troop carriers, and the original 20 colony ships that had become mobile command centers. Victoria looked at the holographic projection of Earth, seeing the Coalition vessels that surrounded humanity's homeworld like a cage. Her tactical officer, Commander Marcus Liu, highlighted enemy positions. Intelligence reports 3,000 Coalition warships in Earth orbit and the surrounding space. Defense platforms on the Moon and Mars. Sensor arrays throughout the inner system. They have detection coverage of every approach vector. Victoria smiled coldly. Every conventional approach vector. What's the status of our stealth systems? Black coating is holding at 97% efficiency. We're bleeding some heat signatures, but nothing the Coalition sensors will distinguish from background radiation. As far as they know, we're just empty space. Lieutenant Sarah Kim, the communications officer, looked up from her station. Commander, we're receiving encrypted transmissions from Earth's surface. The Ember protocol is active. They're ready to move on your signal. Victoria felt a surge of pride. For 5 years, humans on Earth had endured occupation, maintaining their resistance, waiting for a hope they had no guarantee would ever arrive. Now that hope had returned, and it was time to show the Meridian Coalition what humanity was truly capable of. Send the activation code, Victoria ordered. All resistance cells begin phase 1 in 6 hours. Simultaneous strikes on communication hubs and power stations. Create chaos, disrupt their coordination. Make them look down at the planet while we come at them from above. She turned to her fleet coordination officer. Signal all ships. Battle formation Delta. We hit them in waves, fast and hard. Don't give them time to organize a proper response. Target their command vessels first. Cut off their leadership and watch the rest fall apart. Marcus studied the tactical display. Commander, even with surprise on our side, we're still outnumbered. The math is against us. Victoria's expression hardened. The coalition thinks war is about numbers and firepower. They fight like they're moving pieces on a game board, predictable and methodical. But we've fought pirates, scavengers, and things the coalition has never encountered. We've learned that war is about will, adaptation, and the willingness to do whatever it takes to win. The coalition is about to learn that lesson the hard way. The Resistance Rises Catherine Morrison received the activation code at 0300 hours. She was in her apartment, having barely slept for 3 days since detecting the Black Fleet's arrival. The code appeared on her encrypted tablet, a simple sequence of numbers that meant everything. In 6 hours, humanity would stop being victims and become fighters again. She immediately sent secondary codes to her cell leaders. Rachel Torres in São Paulo, Dmitry Volkov in Moscow, James Obi in Lagos, hundreds of others across the planet, each commanding teams that had trained in secret for 5 years, waiting for this moment. The Ember Protocol had been designed as a preservation network, but it had always been prepared to become something more. Now it would transform into a weapon. Catherine, dressed in dark clothing, practical and unremarkable. She moved through the empty streets of Geneva, using routes that avoided coalition patrol patterns. She had memorized these paths years ago, knowing that someday she would need to move unseen. The city was quiet under the harsh lights the coalition had installed, sterile and controlled. She reached a maintenance entrance to the underground transit system. Inside, 30 former soldiers waited in the darkness. These were her people, veterans of Earth's military, who had pretended to accept occupation while never forgetting who they were. They looked at Catherine with expressions mixing hope and grim determination. "This is it," Catherine said quietly. "At 0900, we hit Coalition Command Center 7. The building controls all occupation forces in this sector. We take it down, we blind them. Teams across the planet will be doing the same thing simultaneously. We give the Black Fleet the opening they need." A woman named Sarah Chun, former Navy pilot, raised her hand. "General, what are our chances of surviving this?" Catherine had never lied to her soldiers. She would not start now. "Honestly? Not good. The coalition will respond with overwhelming force. Many of us will die today, but we die free, fighting for our world. And we die knowing that our sacrifice will help ensure humanity's future." The soldiers nodded. They had known the cost when they joined the resistance. Fear was present in their eyes, but so was something stronger. Purpose. The 6 hours passed in preparation and quiet meditation. Catherine checked her weapons, basic firearms that the resistance had manufactured in hidden workshops using preoccupation blueprints. Nothing fancy, but effective enough for the mission. She thought about her daughter Emily and grandson Michael, both safely hidden in a rural safe house away from the major cities. If this day went wrong, at least they would have a chance to survive. At 0-8-50-5, Catherine's team moved into position. Coalition Command Center 7 was a converted government building, now housing alien administrators and their security forces. The resistance had studied every entrance, every guard rotation, every weakness. They knew the building better than the coalition soldiers who occupied it. At exactly 0900, coordinated explosions rocked cities across Earth. Power stations erupted in flames. Communication towers collapsed. Transportation hubs descended into chaos. The Ember Protocol struck everywhere at once, and for the first time in 5 years, the Meridian Coalition felt vulnerable on Earth. Catherine's team breached the command center through a maintenance tunnel. Gunfire echoed through corridors as they encountered Coalition security forces. Aliens fell, surprised by the sudden violence after 5 years of docile human behavior. Catherine moved through the building with practiced efficiency. Her team securing each level, they reached the main control room, where Coalition officers frantically tried to coordinate responses to the uprising. Catherine burst through the door, her weapon raised. The aliens reached for their own weapons, but they were administrators, not warriors. Within seconds, the room was secure. "Shut it down," Catherine ordered. "All systems, all communications. Make them deaf and blind." Her technical specialist went to work on the Coalition computers. Within minutes, the entire sector's occupation network went dark. Across Earth, similar scenes played out in dozens of command centers. The Meridian Coalition's carefully controlled occupation was falling apart. The battle begins. High Chancellor Vexroth was in his orbital command station when the reports started flooding in. Uprisings across Earth. Communications disrupted. Command centers under attack. His crystalline form pulsed with anger and confusion. How had the humans organized this? His intelligence networks had assured him the resistance was minimal, scattered, ineffective. "Deploy suppression forces to all major cities," he ordered. "Use maximum force." The humans need to be reminded of the consequences of defiance. His tactical officer's multiple eyes widened. "Sir, we're detecting massive gravitational anomalies throughout the outer system. Multiple contacts emerging from what appears to be stealth approach vectors." Vexroth turned to the main display. Red dots appeared across the screen, hundreds of them materializing from empty space. Ships, human ships. But that was impossible. Earth's fleet had been destroyed or decommissioned 5 years ago. Identification? He demanded. Unknown configuration. Design elements match old Earth military vessels, but significantly modified. "Sir, they're moving fast." Attack formation. "They're heading straight for us." Asterisk, the first wave of Black Fleet ships hit the outer Coalition defense perimeter like a hammer. Victoria had divided her forces into 5 strike groups, each targeting a different section of the enemy formation. The Coalition ships responded predictably, forming defensive walls and concentrating firepower on the approaching threats. But the Black Fleet did not engage those walls. Instead, they scattered, using the debris fields from old battles and disabled satellites as cover. They moved in patterns the Coalition had never encountered, weaving through space in formations that seemed chaotic but were actually precisely calculated. "Beta Group, target the supply convoy at Sector 7, Victoria commanded. "Don't engage the warships. Hit their logistics." The Coalition had brought massive supply vessels to support their 5-year occupation. These ships carried ammunition, fuel, replacement parts, everything needed to maintain their fleet. They were heavily defended, but not designed for combat. Beta Group's fighters swept in low and fast, targeting the supply ship's engines and cargo holds. Explosions rippled through the Coalition formation as supply vessels detonated. Fuel stores ignited, creating fireballs that engulfed nearby warships. The Coalition's neat defensive formation broke apart as ships scrambled to avoid the expanding debris clouds. "Alpha Group, target their command vessel," Victoria ordered. "All weapons, concentrated fire." The Resolute and her escort ships emerged from a debris field directly behind the Coalition flagship. At point-blank range, they unleashed everything. Railguns, missiles, energy weapons, all focused on a single target. The Coalition flagship's shields held for nearly 3 seconds before collapsing. Hull breaches appeared across its surface. The massive vessel began to list, its systems failing. Vexroth felt his command station shake from impact. Alarms blared across the bridge. His crew scrambled to restore systems that were failing faster than they could repair. "How are they doing this?" he shouted. "Where did these ships come from?" His intelligence officer finally accessed data from the initial scans. "Sir, the ships show signs of extensive modification and improvisation. Technology from multiple sources, some we don't recognize. These aren't the vessels that fled Earth 40 years ago. These are something new." Understanding dawned in Vexroth's mind, cold and terrible. Humanity had not abandoned Earth. They had been building, learning, preparing. The colony ships had become an army. And now that army had returned. The tide turns the battle raged for 18 hours. The coalition forces had superior numbers and firepower, but they were fighting an enemy that refused to follow the rules of conventional warfare. The Black Fleet hit and disappeared, using guerrilla tactics, perfected over 2 decades of survival in hostile space. Victoria coordinated the assault from the Resolute's bridge, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. Every engagement played out according to the scenarios her strategists had developed. The coalition was powerful, but power meant nothing if you could not bring it to bear on your enemy. Charlie Group, the enemy is clustering near Mars orbit. Looks like they're trying to form a rally point. Victoria nodded. Delta Group, loop around through the asteroid belt. Come at them from behind, while Charlie keeps them occupied from the front. Echo Group, prepare bombers. When their formation breaks, I want those bombers targeting their shield generators. Marcus Liu looked up from his station. Commander, we're receiving reports from Earth's surface. The Resistance has successfully taken down 40% of Coalition command infrastructure. Their ground forces are in disarray. Good. That's exactly what we need. Victoria opened a channel to her ground invasion forces. Colonel Anderson, begin planetary descent. Primary targets are Coalition administrative centers and military installations. Work with the local resistance. They know the terrain better than we do. Dropships began launching from the Black Fleet's troop carriers, thousands of them descending through Earth's atmosphere. These soldiers were the children and grandchildren of people who had left Earth 40 years ago. They had trained their entire lives for this moment, learning about the planet they had never seen from parents who remembered it. Catherine watched from the captured command center as the first Black Fleet dropships appeared in Geneva's sky. They were beautiful, painted black with Earth's blue and white insignia. She activated her communicator, connecting to the incoming forces. "This is General Catherine Morrison, Ember Protocol, sending you current tactical data on Coalition positions in this sector. Welcome home, soldiers." The voice that answered was young but confident. "General Morrison, this is Colonel Sarah Anderson, 3rd Expeditionary Force. We've been waiting 40 years to say this. Earth Defense Force has returned. Point us to the enemy." Coalition forces on the ground found themselves fighting on 2 fronts. The Resistance attacking from within their own controlled zones, and Black Fleet soldiers descending from above. The aliens had been trained for occupation duty, not urban warfare against a determined enemy defending their homeworld. They fell back, consolidated, attempted to establish defensive positions. But everywhere they turned, humans were there, fighting with a ferocity born from 5 years of suppressed rage. In orbit, the Coalition fleet was collapsing. Their command structure had been shattered when Victoria's Alpha Group crippled the flagship. Individual ships fought well, but without coordination, they could not counter the Black Fleet's tactics. One by one, Coalition vessels were destroyed or disabled, their crews evacuating in escape pods that the humans allowed to flee unmolested. Victoria had been clear in her orders. This was not a war of extermination. Earth did not want to become the kind of conqueror the Meridian Coalition had been. Enemy crews who surrendered were allowed to leave. Ships that powered down their weapons were left intact. Humanity was reclaiming its freedom, not seeking genocide. The final confrontation Vex's damaged flagship limped toward the outer system, trying to reach the jump point that would allow escape to Coalition space. His fleet was gone. 70% destroyed, the rest scattered or surrendered. The occupation of Earth had lasted 5 years. The liberation had taken less than a day. His communication console activated. A human face appeared on the screen. A woman, younger than Vexroth had expected, wearing a military uniform he did not recognize. Her eyes were hard, but not cruel. High Chancellor Vexroth, I am Fleet Commander Victoria Cross of the United Earth Deep Space Fleet. Your forces are defeated. Power down your vessel and prepare to be boarded. Vexroth's crystalline body dimmed, a sign of exhaustion and defeat. How? We destroyed your fleet 5 years ago. Where did you come from? Victoria smiled coldly. You destroyed the fleet we let you see. The ships that stayed behind to defend Earth, knowing they would lose. But 40 years ago, Earth's leaders looked at the galaxy and realized something important. We were alone and vulnerable. So they made a choice. They sent their best and brightest away into deep space with one mission: survive, build, remember, and if Earth ever fell, come back stronger. Impossible. We would have detected such an exodus. You detected what we wanted you to detect. While you were watching Earth, building your empire, assuming humanity was weak and primitive, we were out there learning everything we could about the galaxy you thought you controlled. We met species you've never encountered. We traded with worlds that want nothing to do with your coalition. We learned to fight from pirates and mercenaries. And we built a fleet specifically designed to defeat yours. Vexroth understood now. The coalition had made a fundamental error. They had judged humanity based on a single moment, a single defeat. They had not considered that humans might plan across generations, that they might sacrifice the present to secure the future. What happens now? He asked. Now you leave. You take your surviving forces and return to Coalition space. And you deliver a message. Earth is sovereign. Humanity will never submit to foreign rule again. Any species that wants peace with us will have it. Any species that wants trade, alliance, or friendship, we are open to negotiation. But any species that tries to conquer us will face what you face today. We are not victims. We are not weak. And we never, ever give up. Vexroth's ship was allowed to leave. He jumped to faster-than-light travel, carrying his defeat back to the Coalition. He would report what had happened. He would tell the Council about the Black Fleet and the humans who had planned their revenge across 4 decades. And the galaxy would hear the story and learn a lesson. The new dawn, Catherine, stood in the ruins of Coalition Command Center 7, watching the sunrise through broken windows. The building had taken heavy damage during the fighting, but it no longer mattered. The Coalition was gone. Earth was free. Around her, Resistance fighters and Black Fleet soldiers worked together, clearing debris and helping civilians. She heard footsteps behind her. Victoria Cross entered the room, her uniform dusty from the fighting. The two women looked at each other, separated by 40 years and 4 decades of different experiences, but united by their humanity. General Morrison, Victoria said, saluting formally. It's an honor to meet you. Catherine returned the salute, then smiled and offered her hand. The honor is mine, Commander. You came back. Against impossible odds, you actually came back. We had to. Earth is our home, even for those of us who never saw it. My parents told me stories every night about this planet. They made me promise that if Earth ever needed us, I would be there. Today, I kept that promise. They walked to the window together, looking out at the city. Humans were already emerging from their homes, celebrating in the streets. The nightmare of occupation was over. Freedom had returned, carried home by people who had never known it personally, but had fought for it anyway. What happens now? Catherine asked. The Coalition won't forget this. They'll want revenge. Victoria nodded. Ben, we'll be ready. We're not the species that surrendered 5 years ago. We've changed. We've adapted. And we're not alone anymore. During our journey, we made contact with other species, independent worlds that resent the Coalition's dominance. They're willing to work with us, to form alliances. Earth won't stand alone again. Catherine thought about the future stretching before humanity. It would not be easy. The galaxy was dangerous, filled with species both friendly and hostile. But humanity had proven something important today. They could not be conquered permanently. They would not accept subjugation. And they planned for the long term in ways that other species could not imagine. There's something you need to know, Catherine said. The Ember Protocol preserved everything during the occupation. Culture, history, technology, all the things the Coalition tried to erase. Your people might have been away for 40 years, but Earth never forgot who we were. We kept the flame alive. Victoria smiled. And we brought reinforcements. The colony ships are full of people, technology, resources. We didn't just come back to fight. We came back to rebuild, to make Earth stronger than it was before. Ships continued descending from orbit throughout the day. The Black Fleet had brought home not just soldiers, but scientists, engineers, doctors, teachers. 1 million people who had left Earth as a desperate survival measure now returned as liberators and builders. They carried technology developed over 4 decades of exploration, innovations born from necessity and desperation. The celebrations lasted for days. Across Earth, humans gathered in cities and towns, sharing stories of resistance and liberation. Families were reunited as soldiers who had been forced into labor camps were freed. Children who had grown up under occupation learned what freedom felt like. And the Black Fleet personnel, who had never seen Earth, finally walked on the planet their parents and grandparents had left behind. The message to the galaxy 3 months after the liberation. Humanity broadcast a message across known space. It was transmitted on every frequency, in every major galactic language. Prime Minister Okonkwo, aged but unbowed, stood before cameras with Victoria Cross and Catherine Morrison beside him. To all species of the galaxy, this is Earth. 3 months ago, we reclaimed our freedom from the Meridian Coalition. We do this not out of hatred, but out of necessity. Humanity will never again submit to foreign rule. We are not seeking conflict with any species. We want peace, trade, cultural exchange, and mutual cooperation. But let it be known across the stars that Earth is sovereign. We are protected not just by our own forces, but by alliances we have formed with other free worlds. Any species that wishes to be our friend will find us welcoming. Any species that attempts to conquer us will face the same fate as the Coalition. The message included data on the Black Fleet's capabilities, carefully edited to show strength without revealing all their secrets. It showed footage of the battle, demonstrating human tactical innovation. It displayed the Resistance's organization, proving that humanity could not be controlled even under occupation. The galaxy's response was mixed. Some species were impressed, even intimidated. Others saw opportunity in potential alliances with this surprisingly resilient species. The Meridian Coalition retreated into their own space, licking their wounds and reassessing their expansion policies. They would not attempt to conquer Earth again. The cost was too high and the lesson too painful. But most importantly, other occupied species took notice. If humanity could resist the Coalition, perhaps they could too. Rebellions began appearing across coalition space. Not all would succeed, but the seed of resistance had been planted. Earth's liberation had shown the galaxy that the coalition was not invincible. The promise kept Catherine Morrison retired from active service after the liberation. She had done her duty, had seen Earth free again before her death. She spent her remaining years writing about the occupation and resistance, ensuring that future generations would remember both the cost of defeat and the price of freedom. Victoria Cross became Earth's chief military commander, overseeing the integration of the Black Fleet with Earth's rebuilt defense forces. She married Marcus Liu, and they had 3 children who would grow up on the Earth their grandmother had left 4 decades earlier. The circle was complete. The Deep Space Initiative was not disbanded but expanded. New colony ships were built, this time sent out not from fear but from curiosity and the desire to grow. Humanity had learned a valuable lesson. Never keep all your eggs in one basket. Never assume that today's peace will last forever. Always prepare, always plan. Always remember that freedom requires eternal vigilance. Earth's population grew as the million people from the colony ships integrated with those who had survived the occupation. They brought new perspectives, new technologies, new ways of thinking. The blending of those who had left and those who had stayed created a stronger, more resilient humanity. And in orbit, painted black and silent, the fleet remained, not as conquerors, but as guardians. A reminder to Earth and to the galaxy of what humans could achieve when pushed to their limits. A memorial to those who had died during the occupation, and a promise that never again would humanity be caught unprepared. The galaxy had demanded Earth's surrender. They had received it for a time, but they had learned that surrendering and being defeated were not the same thing. Humanity had taken 5 years of occupation and used it to buy time for their real strength to return. They had endured humiliation, preserved their culture, and waited for the cavalry that had been riding toward them for 4 decades. The Black Fleet had returned. Earth was free, and across the galaxy, species that had once dismissed humanity as primitive and weak now spoke the name with respect and caution. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through conquest, but through resilience, planning, and the absolute refusal to accept defeat as final. The story of Earth's liberation would be told for generations across hundreds of worlds. And the lesson was simple but profound. Never underestimate a species that thinks in centuries. Never assume that today's victory is permanent. And never, ever count humanity out, because humans remembered. Humans planned. Humans endured. And when the time was right, humans returned stronger than before. The galaxy had learned that lesson the hard way. Earth made sure they would never forget it. The end asterisk.